Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Helen Miller from Ohio EPA. We'll be starting our webinar in approximately 1 minute as we still have some folks logging on. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ohio EPA's Water Supply Revolving Loan Account, or WSRLA, Program Year 2025 Updates and Highlights webinar. My name is Helen Miller with Ohio EPA's Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance. I will be moderating this afternoon's presentation. Our presenters today are John Bernstein, Katie Courtwright, and Kevin Spurbeck from our Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, and Nush Kurlis and Gina Hayes from our Division of Drinking and Groundwaters. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items to help you participate and engage with our presenters during this afternoon's webinar. On this slide, you see a screenshot of an example attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your computer desktop in the upper right-hand side of your screen. For this webinar, you are listening in using your computer audio. If you have sound issues or if the slides stop advancing, please try refreshing your browser. If that doesn't work, try logging off and logging back in. If you continue to have issues, please let us know by using the questions pane on your attendee interface, and we'll try to assist you. Please feel free to submit questions to us by typing them into the questions pane on your attendee interface. You may send your questions in at any time during the presentation. We'll try our best to answer questions as they come in and during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. If we don't answer your question during the Q&A portion, we will reach out to you via email following today's webinar. You can also click on the document icon to view included handouts. Today's handouts are a PDF file of today's PowerPoint presentation and several other handouts. This webinar is being recorded. You will receive a follow-up email approximately an hour after the webinar. This email will contain a link to the recording, a link to your attendance certificate to download, and a link to our survey. The survey will also appear once the webinar ends. We value your feedback and would greatly appreciate it if you let us know how we're doing and let us know if there's anything we can do to further assist you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, John Bernstein.
Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We're kicking off another year of the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account, or WSRLA. As Helen mentioned, I'm Chief of our Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, and I'm going to get us started today. Okay, so really just want to start giving you a brief overview of our program and the additional bipartisan infrastructure law funding we have. I talk about some of the funding initiatives for those of you coming back that have been with us for a couple of years. Probably not too much new there. I do want to talk about highlights for program year 2025. The program year for the WSRLA does run on the state fiscal year. We're going to have a lot of information on program updates, so we'll be moving pretty quick today. Go through nomination information and questions. We hope to have time for Q&A. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat, though, and if we don't answer things today, we will get back to you after the webinar. So a little background on the WSRLA. It is one of our 2 state revolving fund programs for Ohio. Every state has an SRF program, and for drinking water in Ohio, it's called a Water Supply Revolving Loan Account. Program's been around for 25 years this month, and we think it's been really successful and growing very rapidly in Ohio. On the program side, we administer the program between the Division of Environmental Financial Assistance, or DEFA, and the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters. Not on this slide, but the financial aspects of the program are handled by our partners at the Ohio Water Development Authority. So they handle all project disbursements as well as collecting repayment on any loans. The program at its core is really here to provide below market interest rates. So every loan that goes out from the program is receiving subsidy. Typically, it's about 1.25% below the market rate, but we do have a lot of discounts that are available for program initiatives and oftentimes for disadvantaged communities. A very popular portion of the program, and there's more of it these days through the bipartisan infrastructure law, is principal forgiveness. So principal forgiveness is grant-like funding. It's in the form of a loan that does not need to be repaid. So it's not technically a grant, but it does act like one. And the main offering we have through the program is planning loans, design loans, and construction loans. Typically, we see people structuring their projects. So what you see here is kind of a typical scheme we're happy to work with you on. All of our planning and design loans are at 0% terms, 0% interest at a 5-year term. So what you can do is take a planning loan, get your planning done, so help you determine the best project for you. You will roll that into design loan, actually design your project and get it ready to bid, and then you'll get a loan to construct the project. And the loans are repayable within 18 months of the initiation of operation. So you're really not paying anything on your project for probably 1.5 to 2 years. Looking at the additional funds we have, so 2024, we're looking to get more grants for the Clean Water Program in green and more grants from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or otherwise known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. So the blue columns are the drinking water program, and we've got asterisks there because we don't quite yet have the allocations from US EPA. So these numbers could go down, they could go up just a little bit, but we don't think they're going to change dramatically. The first blue column going from left to right is the additional money coming into our base program. So 49% of that $51 million is going out as principal forgiveness for disadvantaged communities. In the middle column, approximately $17 million, like I said, that could go up or down, is going out as 100% principal forgiveness for emerging contaminants. And lastly, a very large number for lead service lines. $166 million, give or take, is going to be available for lead service lines. 49% of that money is going out as principal forgiveness, and we're doing a lot of unique things with some of this money. Something we're very, very excited to launch is a state services contract to better help our public water systems identify, map, and inventory their lead service lines. So we'll have more information for you there, but definitely a lot of opportunity and a lot of new money coming into the program. Just some of the funding requirements you'll see coming through DEFA and through the SRF programs. Davis-Bacon wage rates, typically not a big deal in Ohio since you already have state prevailing wage rates, but that is a requirement. American Iron and Steel is a permanent requirement of the drinking water SRF. It previously was just for the clean water SRF. And I have potentially Build America, Buy America Act requirements. This is a new requirement that came out of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This is going to apply across the board for all of our lead projects and all of our emerging contaminant projects, unless you get a project-specific waiver or meet one of the other existing waivers through US EPA. Otherwise, it's really going to be some of our large projects, which we'll identify and let our applicants know that will be subject to Build America, Buy America Act, otherwise known as BABA. Other requirements, pretty standard: disadvantaged business enterprise, equal employment opportunity, federal department, very typical requirements. Happy to answer questions if you have any on those. And like BABA, the single audit CFA reporting, that's going to be a new requirement for a lot of our borrowers that are getting the lead service line or emerging contaminant funding. Those are considered federal funded projects, so we will be happy to chat with you just to let you know what that entails. Okay, and with that, we are going to take a quick poll. We'll turn over the presentation to Katie Courtright.
Thanks, John. And thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. I'm Katie Courtright. I'm the Assistant Chief here in our Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance. I'm going to start my portion of the presentation with a quick poll. And it's just to give us an idea of what types of organizations are on the call with us today. So for this poll, please identify your affiliation. Your choices are local government official, public water system, consultant, business or private individual, or other, and you may choose all that apply.
Okay, I have launched the poll, so when it pops up on your screen, please go ahead and make your selections. Okay, and it looks like most people have voted. If you have not, please go ahead and make your final selections, and I will close the poll shortly. Okay, I am sharing the results. Back to you, Katie.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, so good representation from multiple organizations. Thank you all for joining us today again, and hopefully you'll get some good information on our presentation. Okay. So for my portion of the presentation today, I'm going to overview some of the highlights we're anticipating for program year 2025. And we're going to start out with discounted rates and principal forgiveness. So for discounted interest rates, and within the WSRLA, all of our loans are already considered low interest loans or below market value loans. In addition to that, we offer discounted rates for certain types of projects. So regionalization, lead service line, emerging contaminant, planning and design, and harmful algal bloom projects all receive additional interest rate reductions. Most of those are 0% interest rate for those project types. So we'll plan to continue to offer those for 25. And we also plan to offer principal forgiveness. As John mentioned earlier, we're not quite sure on that exact amount yet until our allocation from US EPA is identified. The principal forgiveness funding is directly proportional to the CAP grants or capitalization grant funds we receive from US EPA. They are grant-like dollars. It is a loan, but it has a portion that is not required for repayment, and that's the principal forgiveness portion. We target those funds as they're limited and very competitive to receive those dollars. So we target those toward program priorities. And for 25, we're looking at regionalization, disadvantaged communities, lead service line, and emerging contaminants. John mentioned earlier through the bipartisan infrastructure law or bill, we have specific funding for the final two there, lead service line, and emerging contaminants. I have a couple slides on that later that we'll go through to talk about those funds specifically. Okay, so qualifying for principal forgiveness. As I said, we target principal forgiveness or grant-like dollars out of the loan funds for specific project types, as well as towards disadvantaged communities. We use benchmarks to identify who might be eligible as a disadvantaged community. So we're looking at a public water system with a system population of 10,000 or less. Your project will be addressing a human health related factor, and you meet in 3 of the 4 criteria there in the red box, the highlighted box. So we use socioeconomic data. What's identified is from the American Community Survey 2022 data for census related information. So that's things like MHI, poverty rate, and unemployment rate. We also use US EPA's database to identify system population. So that's system population, not community population, for that threshold. So the other piece that I would mention on this slide, so for disadvantaged community for principal forgiveness, it says disadvantaged and regionalization projects. So we'll identify, communities that are eligible for disadvantaged principal forgiveness. For regionalization, we will also identify systems that maybe are larger systems that are anticipating a regionalization project where the benefited community meets these criteria. So we'll also look at that for principal forgiveness. So if you're a larger community, say a county, and you're extending service to an underserved area under a regionalization project, we would look at that underserved area to see if they meet the criteria for principal forgiveness. Okay. So regionalization and disadvantaged community funding, what that looks like, will provide up to 50% principal forgiveness or up to $4 million, whichever is less, and the remainder funded with a 0% loan. So if you're eligible, that's the maximum in principal forgiveness for each project. And then additionally, as I mentioned earlier, regionalization and disadvantaged community projects receive 0% loan funding. So even if you don't qualify or are not in competitive funding range for the principal forgiveness, those type projects receive 0% interest rate loans. For lead service line and emerging contaminant projects, we changed that criteria just a little bit. So what we've done is we've taken out the population threshold. So that the criteria, the socioeconomic criteria are the same, but for system population, there's no threshold value. So for lead service line and emerging contaminant funding, we're looking at those same 3 out of 4 of those criteria, but there's no population threshold to identify. For lead service line and emerging contaminant funding, as John said, we're waiting on a little bit of information yet from US EPA on our final numbers, but we're estimating right about 150 million or so for lead service line funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law or bill. We offer that in accordance with the CAP grant requirements as a combination of principal forgiveness and loan award. So 53% of a lead service line project can be issued with principal forgiveness, and the remainder will be at a 0% loan for disadvantaged communities. And then for our emerging contaminant funding, we estimate around $17 million in principal forgiveness funding. We also offer 0% for PFAS-related remediation projects that don't qualify for that disadvantaged status. So in addition to our how we evaluate and prioritize projects for that principal forgiveness funding, you have to meet the eligibility criteria. We'll also score all of the projects. So every project that comes in through the nomination cycle will receive a project score, and then we also further prioritize those by which projects are ready to proceed. So those are high scoring projects we look at to identify the status of the project as it moves towards construction. So what phase you're in as you're moving towards construction funding. And those that receive the highest readiness to proceed ranking are those with all of the items identified here already completed or underway. So we're looking at things like project planning information, or if your project requires a general plan. I think Nush or Gina will be talking about this a little bit later. If your project requires a general plan, where are you with that? Has it been approved or submitted? Looking at the status of design, is it underway or complete? Have you submitted detailed plans to Division of Drinking Groundwaters? And then also we're looking at public participation. Public participation is really important, and what we're looking for here for those regionalization projects as well as lead service line projects. So in the case of regionalization, where you're extending service to an underserved area, what we're looking for is the outreach efforts that you've already done, right? So, and you have some buy-in from that area that you're extending to. So that's what we're looking for there in public participation. I will note real quick that in your handouts that are available to you, there are 2 documents to reference. One is about disadvantaged community criteria that we just went through, and then also one about readiness to proceed. So be sure to download those. Take a look. Okay. Just a couple more slides on lead service line funding and emerging contaminant funding particularly. So for lead service line funding, technical assistance, that's something John mentioned earlier, and I think Nush and Gina are going to talk about a little bit later, some technical assistance opportunities. And then also with that funding, we do planning, design, and construction funding. And what we're talking about, you see from the figure, it's both the public and the private side. So we're talking about lead service line, we mean the whole thing, both public and private side. So that's from your, main line up to the property boundary, and then that curb stop up to either the shutoff or the meter inside the house. So the funding options for lead service line projects, planning and design. So just like any other planning design project that comes through our program, that's 0% for 5 years. For lead service line, you can use that to do inventory and mapping. You can do identification as part of design. Those are options available to you. Construction financing for all lead service line projects is 0%. And then if you're eligible for disadvantaged community principal forgiveness, we'll do that up to 53% as principal forgiveness, and the remainder is 0%. Again, there's no population threshold for lead service line to meet that disadvantage criteria. For construction projects for lead service line, just a couple things to note. We typically see either combined projects or standalone projects. So combined projects would be a water line improvement project that is also doing service line replacement. So in lead service lines would be part of that. So if it's a combined project, make sure that when you're putting together your nomination, there's a place on the nomination form for you to identify the lead service line portion. And that way we know how much of that project to fund from that specific lead service line funding opportunity. So you estimate that based on your available documentation. For standalone lead service line projects, we see that you can nominate those as part of a defined area for replacement. So, Walnut to Cherry Street kind of defined area, or if you're setting up a program for replacements. Just another reminder, both private and public side replacement is required for this. And just quickly, this is more for reference for later about what we're talking about with public and private lead service line. That can be the lead goosenecks, or sometimes called pigtails. It does include galvanized pipe following lead. We will fund identification, mapping, and inventory. And nominations for lead service line funding will be open year round. We do really encourage you to go ahead and nominate during the nomination period for any known project that you have. That way you're on our list and we can be working with you to get your project funded. And finally, for my portion of the presentation today, just emerging contaminants, what we mean by that and what the funding looks like. We're estimating about $17 million for emerging contaminants funding for program year 2025. What that means is emerging contaminants are contaminants that are on US EPA's contaminant candidate list, or CCL. Our focus for that funding is really on PFAS related projects. So that could be any of the number of things that identified here: regionalization, enhanced treatment, or even new source water options. There is potential for planning and design funding with that $17 million. In addition to the funding we're anticipating through Bill, we anticipate a separate grant for emerging contaminants at $23 million or so. Again, that'll be for smaller disadvantaged communities, and that will be used for projects that are identified in the nomination process as emerging contaminant projects. Okay, I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Noosh and we'll take another quick poll.
Good afternoon. My name is Noosh Corliss. I'm with the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters, Assistant Chief overseeing engineering, funding, and asset management. We're going to do our second poll question here. What is your highest priority issue in your water system? Water loss, lead lines, aging infrastructure, system capacity, or other?
Okay, I have launched the poll, so go ahead and make your selection, and you can select all that apply. And it looks like most people have made their selections. If you haven't, go ahead and do so. And I will close the poll shortly. Okay, I am sharing the results, and back to you, Nush.
Thank you. It looks like we have a good mixture, but majority are pointing to aging infrastructure. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. There we go. So I'm going to speak about some program updates in the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters, starting off with lead and copper, asset management, talk about some PFAS updates, talk about planning that you can do for various things, and then Gina's going to round us out with some drinking water grant opportunities and technical assistance. So for our lead and copper rule, we did recently have the lead and copper rule improvements come out from US EPA. And this is a proposed rule. Comments were due this past Monday on this proposed rule. So they are proposing in this rule to achieve 100% lead pipe replacement within 10 years of most water systems. Looking to have water systems regularly update their inventories, replacement plans, and update their unknowns in their water system. There's process improvements for tap sampling, lower lead action level from 15 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion. And if you have 3 or more ALEs in a 5-year period at your system, then there's additional requirements for outreach and filters to those affected by that. Part of the lead and copper rule revisions and the lead and copper rule improvements included a service line inventory requirement. This part of the rule has remained unchanged, and it is required to submit your inventory by October 16th, 2024 of this year. Ohio has a required inventory template that is on the website. It is very similar to the federal template. There are some required fields that we ask that you complete. There's some fields that are strongly recommended that you collect that information and include that as well. We are combining the inventory requirement in the lead and copper rule with Ohio's mapping requirement into one submission. So you do not need to include a map requirement as well. We do not plan to have any changes to this template from now until October. So feel free to download that off of our website and begin completing that if you have not done so already. If you have GIS data that you'd like to use and you need some help with figuring out how to do that with our template, please reach out and let us know, and we'll try to help you with what you have. Just wanted to mention also that Ohio EPA does not endorse any specific products for inventories or identification at this time. So touching on asset management is strongly linked to our WSRLA program. We require it for all community and non-transient, non-community public water systems. The programs are to be updated annually. We see them as a live program that is not static, but a dynamic program that you continually update with updated information. You are supposed to include a capital improvement plan within your asset management program, and those proposed projects should be included in that CIP. Each system's program will be evaluated as part of the WSRLA program. If you have any deficiencies that are noted during that review, then they either need to be corrected or on an acceptable schedule prior to your loan being awarded. So on to PFAS. This is another big topic. It's one of the emerging contaminants that is under the emerging contaminants bill funding. For PFAS regulations, we expect to have some more clarity in the next month or two as we anticipate the final PFAS rules coming from US EPA. We also recognize there's a lot of challenges with this. There's design challenges, there's cost challenges, treatment and source alternatives that you can be looking at. We have done some statewide testing for public water systems since 2020. During our state testing, we found that 80+ systems had at least one PFAS detected, and 20 additional systems had at least a raw detection. During the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule sampling that's going on right now, additional 12 systems have been captured in those samplings or those monitoring that have detections now as well. So back in 2022, US EPA published 4 lifetime health advisory levels. As you can see, these levels are very low. Those are 0.004 parts per trillion for PFOA, 0.02 for PFAS, and then the other ones are a little bit higher. These are health advisory levels. These are not in the proposed rule. Those are slightly different. This is health-based limits here. So in March 14th, 2023, US EPA announced proposed rules for 6 PFAS substances, and those are listed there, the same ones that were listed in the previous slide. This proposed rule that we anticipate being final in the next month or two had monitoring for these 6 PFAS compounds, notifying the public of the concentrations of those compounds, as well as reducing the levels of these in your drinking water if you are exceeding those proposed standards. So the proposed rule includes maximum contaminant levels for PFOA and PFAS at 4 parts per trillion, as well as the 4 additional PFAS, GenX, PFBS, PFHXS, PFNA, is in a hazard index approach to address these as a mixture. So you would be looking basically at a ratio of those other 4 substances. So as I mentioned before, there is a sampling effort going on right now called the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule. This is a US EPA national program. There's a new round every 5 years, and this is the 5th round that we are in right now. There are 338 Ohio public water systems participating in this round, and they are collecting samples for 29 PFAS and lithium. The first 12 sets of data was released on August 17th, and they continue to release more data. This is a summary of Ohio and the US as far as the samples that have been collected so far as of last month. About 33% of Ohio data is included here. So as you can see, there's some water systems that have had detections for PFOA and PFAS and lithium, and a few for GenX. So planning for PFAS, it's very important to do planning prior to deciding on what direction to go when you're looking at PFAS contamination, either in your well or in your source water or in your finished water. You should be reviewing your data to understand the levels, the risks, and which wells or what source water your PFAS is coming from. And this is to determine the best public water system option. We have a fact sheet on our website that we'll be putting into the chat here, a link to it, and this will give you some ideas on the different options you might have for dealing with your PFAS contamination. Some of those options can include connection to a public water system, another public water system, sampling to determine the source of your PFAS, potentially blending your sources. This may or may not be an option depending on where the final rules fall with the MCL. You could also look at evaluating alternative water sources as well as treatment. So the take-home message for PFAS is that it's moving very quickly. There will be an implementation period once the final rule has been published, but it is a great time to be looking at reducing your levels, reducing the risk, identifying your options, and taking advantage of all this funding. Communication on PFAS is definitely challenging. We have Ohio EPA templates, as well as US EPA has outreach materials that you can use to communicate with your residents in your community. And please stay in touch on updates. Be on our listservs to get updates there. Check our website, as well as reach out to us directly. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to talk about what path you decide to take. So as far as planning goes, I did want to touch on general plans. These are the components that we would expect to see in a general plan if you are planning to do modifications, improvements, expansions at your water treatment plant. So one of the key pieces that I wanted to talk about here is looking at your future conditions, your projections on what your needs will be in the future, taking a look at environmental impacts for all of the alternatives that you're considering, being sure that you make sure the public is involved and aware of the projects that you're looking at. And make sure you review at least 3 alternatives in your evaluation. Those must be included in the general plan, and a full evaluation of regionalization is expected as well. We'll be looking at a discussion and a justification for your selected alternative, and we will be looking at the cost estimate for all of your alternatives. And this would be including operation and maintenance cost, as well as capital costs. So general plan requirements for WSRLA, you can use a planning loan to develop your general plan if you don't have one already. For design loans, if it is a major plant project, we expect that the general plan be approved by the end of the month prior to loan award. For construction loans, we need that general plan to be approved at the time of nomination. All other projects that are not major plant projects, we need facility planning information provided for construction loans. If you have any questions on whether your project would require a general plan, please do reach out to us and we can help you figure that out. Just touching on some recent projects. So as far as planning goes, you can use planning loan funds to do PFAS alternatives analysis, PFAS sampling, pilot studies, corrosion control studies, lead service line inventory and mapping. And here are some of the recent projects we've seen. We've seen quite a few water line extensions, emergency supply connections, regionalization, and definitely some PFAS projects there as well. And now I'm going to hand it over to Gina to discuss some grant opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Noosh. Hi, I'm Gina Hayes. I am the program manager for asset management and funding out of the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters. And I'm going to talk about some drinking water grant opportunities and technical assistance that we have for you all today. So we'll start with our drinking water grant opportunities that are open now through February 23rd. I hope that you have heard of these already. We are offering the Asset Management Program Development Grant. So we have $500,000 set aside for this particular grant. So systems can receive up to $15,000 to further implement and develop their asset management plans. We're also offering the Source Water Protection Strategies Grant, again, $500,000 set aside for this, and up to $20,000 available per strategy for those systems and strategies that are selected. And the Well Abandonment Grant, we have $250,000 set aside for this, and systems can receive up to $15,000 per well to be abandoned. And these are available through our new online application. You'll see the link there. And what you're going to want to do is scroll down until you see the PWS grant option, and you are going to have to create an account to proceed through the application process. All right, give me 1 second. There we go. A little bit more about the Protective Strategy Grant. These are eligible, community water systems are eligible that use groundwater as a source with a population that is less than 50,000. We are targeting high susceptibility systems and systems with high risk potential contaminant sources within their protection areas. Again, $500,000 and $20,000 per strategy to be implemented. And a little more about the Well Abandonment Grant. So this grant is to properly abandon existing inactive wells at community water systems. We have received some questions if this is for other potentially inactive wells within maybe an inner or outer protection area and that aren't owned by a public water system, and those would not be eligible. So right now it is only public water system wells that need to be abandoned that are currently inactive. And eligible costs include the materials and supplies necessary to properly abandon them in accordance with Ohio EPA rules. And again, up to $15,000 available for that reimbursement, well abandonment. We'll switch gears here to some technical assistance options. So for service line identification and mapping, as Nush and Katie and everybody has said, this is a hot topic, and we're happy to be able to provide some assistance with our partners here. So we have the Ohio Rural Community Assistance Program. And then also we have a state contract to help systems with this on a local level. So more about that in a moment. First, Ohio RCAP is providing direct assistance to those public water systems under 10,000 in population, and they can help with a variety of, items that are related to this lead service line inventory. So they'll help develop the service line inventory, they'll do outreach to the community, provide assistance in training and identification of these service lines. And right now they are working with over 60 communities across the state. And then back to our direct assistance contract. So this is a really timely presentation today because the advertisement was just posted by Ohio Department of Administrative Services, and we're hoping to be in contract with multiple vendors early next month. So this is really exciting, an opportunity to get more assistance out there for that service line inventory activities. So the link here for more information is important. You're going to want to search for lead service inventory and replacement planning on that webpage to get more information on the advertisement. Eligible activities under this contract will be historical document review, on-site identification of those service line materials, and an inventory and replacement plan development. And this will work by public water systems submitting a request form to Ohio EPA with project information, and then we'll prioritize those projects and then match those up with our selected contractors. Additional technical assistance opportunities that we have, again, with our partners at Ohio Rural Water Association and then also again at RCAP, both of these organizations will help water systems meet their technical, managerial, and financial capability through a variety of methods. And this can be technical training, rate study assistance, they do a lot to help us and help public water systems to meet our rules. And they tie it back nicely to securing funding for those much needed water infrastructure needs across the state. And then we have US EPA's Water Technical Assistance Program. And right now there's a really great initiative that they launched back in November, the Get the Lead Out GLOW initiative. So this is an extension of the Lead Service Line Replacement Accelerators pilot program. So some highlights from that program: the technical assistant recipients for this, they'll have lead service line inventories that meet the requirements that Nush was talking about. They will they'll receive educational resources to help with their community engagement plans. And they'll provide will provide each municipality a roadmap for the lead service line replacement plans. So that's pretty exciting. And again, that's for the public and private side. And lastly, this again ties back to their funding. So this will help, this whole thing, they'll put it together and customize a plan to facilitate the work with each individual state's revolving fund program. So that is pretty cool. And so EPA headquarters and their contractors plan to assist up to 200 underserved and disadvantaged communities through this initiative. Communities are strongly encouraged to submit the TA request through the web form link that you see here. Regions are also talking with states to see what needs we have within our state and maybe what systems could benefit from this initiative. More information on the general Get the Lead Out can be found at the website you see here. All right, looks like it's time for a quick poll. So let's go ahead and do that before I turn it over. Poll question 3, what type of funding are you seeking through the WSRLA? Zero interest financing for planning and design, low interest long-term construction financing, principal forgiveness funding, zero interest financing for special projects, lead service line replacement funding, and you can choose all that apply.
Okay, I have launched the poll, so go ahead and make your selections. And also just a quick reminder, I know some people did log on a little bit late, but if you click on the document icon on your panel that you see on the right side of your screen, There's a copy of your PowerPoint slides. It's in PDF format. All of the links that are in the slides are live in that PDF document. And then there's also multiple documents. I know Katie mentioned a few. There's quite a few handouts in there. So be sure to download those before you close out of the webinar today. And it looks like most people have voted, so I will close out the poll shortly. Okay, and I am sharing the results.
Okay, thanks, Helen. So, wow, we really do have a nice mix here. Principal forgiveness is a hot topic though, so that's I can see that being the most. We all want information on that, right? All right, thanks so much. Well, let's get back to it. Now I will turn this over to Kevin Spurbeck. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Kevin Spurbeck, the manager of the Grants and Loans section here in DEFA. I'm going to be talking about nomination submissions, deadlines, and general some information about nominations. The first thing I want to point out is we are starting to accept nominations today through March 8th. That would be the end date, March 8th, a month. We accept nominations for planning, design, lead service lines, emerging contaminants, projects, any project. That please note that planning, design, lead service, and emerging contaminants may be submitted throughout the year. Oops, excuse me. Now, nomination forms and supporting documentation need to be sent to DEFA mail at the address there. If that file is too large for DEFA mail to accept, we ask that you use liquid files. There is instructions on how to use the liquid files. I think attached to this in the documents tab or on our website. And there are certain instructions to, you have to send it to a real person. So send that to Kevin Spurbeck or Amy Walkinspaw. I think there's a slide for there you go. Note that there's a part there that says authentication not required. Please mark that box when you send it. That allows us to be able to forward it on to people who do the scoring and need to process the nominations and stuff. Nomination form, the submittal checklist. Please submit everything on there that applies to your project. If you're nominating a planning or design or construction, nominating all three, you'll need to attach a lot of items to that nomination. If not, attach what applies to your nomination so we can properly review it and score it. The form itself is in Excel and it has 5 tabs in nomination form. For water loans, you need to have the checklist in tabs 1, 2, 3, and 5. Now, remember to submit this stuff because an incomplete nomination form will probably need to contact you to gather more information. So the more complete the nomination form is, the better off we'll be on scoring and asking for information. And it also could help you determine if, it could also help us, determine if you would qualify for principal forgiveness or any other loan discounts. Now this is part of tab 1. It's section 4 of tab 1. Note on the nomination form, there's a box for planning, design, and construction, and an estimated loan date, month and year, and an estimated loan amount. For whichever one of these you check, whichever type of loan you check, we want to know when you plan to get that loan. Now, if you say July of 20, well, excuse me, that's probably not a good day. If you say September of 2024, that will populate tab 5 on the schedule list and it'll give you dates that you need to submit items to us. And you put the estimated loan amount. That's the number that will show up on our program management plan. Also note that we do not make loans in November. We ask that if you think you want a loan in November that you put December. Our loans for November, December are basically combined into one award time, and that is the second Thursday of December typically. On tab 3, please please mark any of these items that you need for type of work, component type, distribution, and put a brief component description in this box here that will accept up to 500 characters. Please don't just put the copy and paste from the front page of the nomination. Please try to be a little bit more detailed if possible, so it helps our reviewers give you an accurate score. It could help, again, avoid us asking you questions later. Remember, tab 4 does not need to be filled out for this, because that's more for the wastewater. Now, we'd accept nominations again for emergent contaminants and lead service lines throughout the year. Emergent contaminants, we would probably assign all principal forgiveness funds at the time of our program management plan, but we will accept nominations throughout the year, and you can get money throughout the year at 0%. The same goes for lead service lines. We will more than likely assign all our principal forgiveness for lead service lines at the time of the program management plan. And if we have anything left over, we can assign some principal forgiveness for if we have any left for those projects. But if nothing remains, we can do that at 0%. A couple of things to remember also is please try not to submit it the last day. We get anywhere from 400 to 500 to 600 nominations typically. And we have to have time to score them. So the earlier you can get them into us, the better off we are, and the sooner we can get reviews done and answer questions for you. That's the main parts of the nominations. One thing I want to point out is a nomination is not an application for a loan. It is to get you on a list for our program management plans to show the potential to receive loan funding. The program management plan will be produced, a draft one later, and then a final one will be done after public comment on a draft program management plan, and that'll show potential loans that we anticipate to make. There is another application process afterwards that you would have to go through and meet all programmatic requirements to actually get the funding. Nomination form just says you're interested in the funding or potential funding. If at some point you determine that you do not want to get funding from the program, or you get funding from another source, we would ask that you let us know, and we would take you off out of our system, or make a note in there. We won't bug you about getting anything. That pretty much concludes the presentation. Now I think I'll turn it over to Helen after you talk about online resources and stuff.
Okay, so I think we're up for some questions here. And I am looking through the list that was submitted. We've gotten a lot of questions in, and again, you can still submit questions while we're going over these. You can, if you don't get a response during the Q&A session, we will be following up via email after the webinar. And I know that we've gotten quite a few specific questions in, so you will probably get a follow-up on those. So our first question is, and this one, I think Katie will be a good person to answer. Does a planning loan get rolled over into and combined with the subsequent design loan, such that the 5-year term starting date resets, or will those remain separate loans until construction begins to roll both separate loans into construction?
Thanks, Helen. That's a good question. So one of the earlier slides John went through, how we've set it up is that planning gets rolled into design. So if you have a planning loan and then you come back through for design, that planning loan gets rolled into design. And then if you come back through for construction, that design loan, which now has both pieces, will get rolled into construction. And each time that gets rolled in, your repayment start date is reset, essentially, because you're starting on a new loan. So if a system were to come in for planning, design, and construction, and we rolled those sequentially, really you wouldn't be paying anything on that planning and design until the time the construction loan was due. So it's a real benefit to borrowers to push those upfront costs off quite a bit until post-construction to start paying on this.
Okay, here's another one for you, Katie. If you're eligible for principal forgiveness, how do you ask or apply for it?
Yes, so great question. So in the nomination form, there's quite a few options to choose from in terms of programmatic discounts and things like that. But essentially, we will identify, we'll take every nomination that comes to the door and we will evaluate them for principal forgiveness eligibility. So against those disadvantaged criteria, and we'll look at to see if you have a human health related factor. So every nomination that comes in, we'll do that test for principal forgiveness to see if you're eligible for disadvantaged or regionalization principal forgiveness. So there's not a specific box that you check. Just make sure if you were looking for some other discount that you check those boxes, and we'll do the evaluation as they come in.
Okay, and Gina, here is one for you. Do you have a list of consultants that you suggest that might help with submittals?
We do not. If someone needs assistance for if they're referring to like the grant applications or even through that direct assistance state contract, they can contact me and we can provide them more information. It is a really easy process, so folks and public water systems can go and do those submittals themselves. I have talked with a lot of consultants and they're well versed. All of them I've spoken to. So yeah, and I'm open to if anybody has any questions or runs into any issues, feel free to reach out to me. Also, our technical assistance providers can help with that type of thing. So if you're a smaller system, I can put you together with RCAP or Rural Water, depending on what the needs are.
Okay, great. Now we have a pretty lengthy question here, but I think a recap of this would be nice. So we have a person asking, we've heard several different responses and what's a general plan, a preliminary engineering report, feasibility study, a project manual. Are they the same terminology or different reports, or could you kind of clarify what each is and how they kind of fit into this nomination phase and application phase? So I am not sure who would like to take that one.
I can take that one. So there are different documents or plans that have different names, but what we are looking for, if it is a treatment plant improvement, we will likely be looking for a general plan that includes all of the required components that's in our guidance. If we haven't provided our guidance, we can try and do that before this call ends. We are looking for that prior to design, if you're getting a design loan the month prior, or at nomination, we would like to have that be approved at nomination. I think you also had a follow-up question on the general plan being included in the nomination. If you have an approved general plan, what we are looking for is your approval letter to be included with that nomination. You can submit your general plan, you can include it, I should say, with your nomination, but it does need to be formally submitted to the Division of Drinking and Groundwaters for review and approval. So that is a separate path where you submit that, and that is in the readiness to proceed evaluation overview document that's in the handouts. You can find information there on how to submit that formally. Now, all projects do require planning information to be submitted with the nomination. So I want to make that clear. That is also in the guidelines for planning information. We'll try and get that into the chat, or at least on the YouTube posting later. Thank you.
Okay. We have a lot more questions, and again, I know that some of these are very specific, so you will get a follow-up after the webinar. But we're going to wrap up here with a couple more questions. And Katie, I think this one can go to you. Is the amount of principal forgiveness funding limited to the estimated loan amount provided in the nomination?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do base the principal forgiveness amount on the estimate provided in the nomination form. Remember, it's a 50% up to $4 million for those allocations of principal forgiveness. So that kind of acts as your ceiling, if you will. So if you have $1 million project, we would do, 500,000 of that as principal forgiveness. And then, if costs increase from that estimate in the nomination form, you put it up to that 500,000 in principal forgiveness. So it does create a ceiling for the principal forgiveness allocation. That's just because we have a very finite amount of funds, to give out, and don't really want to change that later on and shortchange one project from another. It's a good question.
Okay, and John, here is one for you. For program year 2025, lead service line funding, a disadvantaged community candidate. If we serve multiple communities, does this mean we can look at our system as a whole and take out lead service lines everywhere in our system, or only in a disadvantaged city? Or are we following the first 2 years guidelines if only the cities that meet the criteria?
Great question. We want to be as flexible as we can with our lead service line funding. We have a significant amount of funding coming to us from US EPA, and we really want to get the lead out. So we'll be as flexible as we can. I think in the case of some of the larger cities that serve multiple, maybe suburban customers or smaller cities, we would look at your disadvantaged community definition and kind of apply that across the region.
Okay, great, thank you. And we're going to go with one more question and then start the final wrap up here because we're almost right at 2:30. Katie, this will be a question for you. The readiness to proceed overview document that indicates that projects may be sorted by lowest to highest estimated cost. Does this mean a lower cost project would be prioritized for funding over a higher cost project?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We use that sort of as a last tier effort to prioritize, and only in those cases where we have ties. So if a grouping of projects have the same project score and the same readiness to proceed score, we will use cost as a final ranking value, lowest to highest, to determine, their prioritization rank. So really a last option for those projects that are tied both in project score and readiness to proceed score.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, we're right at our 2:30 time. So again, if you have submitted questions and we haven't gotten to those, you will get a response via email. But I would like to thank John, Katie, Kevin, Nush, and Gina for their great presentations. Thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Thank you to our behind the scenes team for answering questions and helping the webinar run smoothly. You will receive a follow-up email approximately an hour after the webinar ends. And the email will contain a link to the recording, a link to your attendance of certificate to download, and a link to our survey. The survey will also pop up once the webinar ends. We value your feedback. We'd greatly appreciate it if you let us know how we're doing and let us know if there's anything we can do to further assist you. Remember to check your junk and spam mail folders to make sure your attendee email doesn't end up there. We are recording the webinar, and we'll post the recording and PDF of the presentation slides and other handouts on our agency YouTube channel. Excuse me. We usually get this posted within a week of the webinar. We'd also like to bring your attention to our Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award program. This recognizes exceptional achievements in environmental stewardship. Is your organization going beyond to reduce your environmental impact? Examples can include lighting retrofits, reducing water energy use, recycling efforts, and process improvement. Is your community implementing sustainable measures to reduce their environmental impact? Examples can include community gardening, energy water reduction, green roofs, and smart transportation. Many of us have children in school. Is your K-12 student implementing student-led sustainable activities at their school? Examples can include encouraging recycling, water bottle refilling stations, and composting. This program has different levels of recognition for organizations, communities, and schools. So each of these awards seek to recognize exceptional efforts for environmental sustainability within that organization. Applications for our 2024 award cycle are currently being accepted through April 30th. And you can find out more through the link at the bottom of the slide. And before we end for the day, please check out our upcoming sessions and plan to join us. On March 27th through 29th, we're partnering with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation on an environmental health education track with 11 sessions at our 2024 Ohio Safety Congress and Expo. All sessions are free, and to register and find out more details, go to the website, and that's here in Columbus. And to register for upcoming webinars, you can always check our agency event calendar at the link on the slide. The events calendar is on our main web page, and also the link is on each web page footer at the bottom of each web page. To register for upcoming webinars or receive notifications of upcoming webinars, you can go to our resource hub at the link on the slide. You can create an account and go to the option subscribe to updates, then select the subscription option, all trainings, webinars, and conferences. And the resource hub link is also at the bottom footer of each web page. If you miss past webinars, you can also go to the agency YouTube channel, and we also post a PDF copy of the PowerPoint slides. YouTube channel can be found at the bottom of each web page on the footer. YouTube icon's next to the Twitter icon. And you can also go to DEFA's web page, the link on the slide. Once you're on the DEFA web page, you click on the word training on the left-hand menu column. And here you'll find recordings of training you may have missed. With that, we'll end today's webinar. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.